Firstly, I'd like to start this video by recommending the book A State of Fear by Laura Dodsworth. I already felt that my eyes were pretty open regarding the government and SAGE and COVID-19, but I couldn't work out why the government were behaving in the way they were with this sort of fear-mongering and stuff like that. And there was quite a few things that didn't quite add up for me, and this book really helped me to kind of understand some of the wider situation that's going on and why it is. This book, it kind of gives you reasons into why the government's behaving in the way it is and why the government's scientists are acting the way they are. So it's well worth a read. It's I think it's about £8 on Amazon. I'll try and include a link in the description for this video. So I really hope I remember to do that. Apologies if I haven't. If I haven't, I'll provide it in the comments. But I'm pretty sure I will remember. Because there were a lot of things going into this pandemic that that didn't quite make sense to me. I remember at first, we didn't know, no one knew very much about the virus, and when the government first announced the lockdown, and it was only supposed to be for 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks to flatten the curve, is what they said at the time, and no one, almost like at the time, I feel very few people questioned it, because very few people felt that they knew enough to question it. We just had to accept that there was this deadly new virus out there, and that we all had to lock down for our own safety. But it very, very quickly became apparent to me, and obviously a lot of other people as well, that the very, very authoritarian measures that the government were placing on us were completely out of kilt with the actual threat we were facing. And this became more and more apparent as it went on, and we learnt. I think it was either Dr. Patrick Vallance who actually said, that COVID-19 for the majority of people is a mild illness, and it was very, very obvious that the measures we've been placed under were not to combat a mild illness. They were completely overblown. But the one thing I could never understand though was why were the government doing this? Was it literally them just being sort of that incompetent? And I'd go on YouTube, and there was a lot of misinformation on YouTube, and there's obviously a lot of kind of crackpot conspiracy theorists that were sort of saying, it's all part of some, global conspiracy to take away our freedoms and all this kind of stuff, which I didn't believe. I found that very, very hard to believe, but I couldn't work out why the government were doing this, why they were, so overblown, and why they were putting in these measures that were just crazy and so disproportionate, until I read A State of Fear, and that State of Fear kind of went into investigating exactly who some of the behavioural scientists behind trying to change the public's perception of COVID-19, and also the people involved with advising the government to inflict these authoritarian measures on us, and it went into who they actually were. Now, the woman you're viewing on screen now is a lady called Susan Michie, who is one of the members of SAGE. I think she's also a member of Independent SAGE. I could be wrong, but she was named by in the book. She was named by two other anonymous SAGE members as one of the most influential people in SAGE, and one of the people kind of really kind of pushing to kind of raise the anxiety level amongst the general public regarding COVID. And I was pretty shocked and flabbergasted to learn that this woman is a paid-up member of the Communist Party of Britain. Maybe if anyone watching this doesn't fully understand what communism is, Google it and Google, research what communist regimes have done to other countries, in the past. But I implore you to look up the stated aims of the Communist Party of Britain. Their sort of aims include things like kind of bringing about a new order, and the end of capitalism and sort of things like that. And communism, is all about collective responsibility, and traditionally they're really not big on freedom, and most communist regimes do end up as being extremely authoritarian. And communism, has done so much damage to so many countries, throughout history. And the only people that really believe in communism now are basically kind of, a lot of it's quite trendy among kind of naive young university students who are sort of trying to be a bit edgy, or people that without being mean are kind of really not very bright. because communism has been tried and tested so many times, and it's very, very obvious that it doesn't work. And not only does it not work, it causes it brings misery, destruction, and death every time it's been tried. So you can imagine my surprise when days after discovering that one of the leading SAGE members is a member of the Communist Party, I saw her on Channel 5 News, being interviewed and claiming that we should keep some of the COVID restrictions in place, quote, forever. So it's extremely worrying that people like her who would support such a ridiculous political party and indeed be a member of it are involved in advising our government over such important issues. I'll put a link at the end showing her kind of chuckling as she says the word forever, with no understanding seemingly of the devastation that will cause to so many people. But I do want to quickly talk about some of the other members of SAGE that I've discovered through online research. And unfortunately, a lot of them do seem to be, quite hard left individuals, kind of, including the name you see on the lady you see on screen now. And I'm going to try and pronounce her name, and I'm really apologise in advance because I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, but it's Dr. Zebana Haig. It's spelled with a Q. I can't pronounce that. She's been a huge advocate for continued restrictions, and indeed, even harder restrictions than we've got now. She's has very clear far left opinions. She even called the Conservative government, quote, far right. We'll move on to the next member I discovered, who is Professor Gabriel Sully, and he's a Labour Party member who's donated thousands of pounds to Labour. Next up is Alison Pollock, who's the president of the Socialist Health Association. Then we've got Professor Anthony Costello. He's a Labour Party activist. Then Professor Martin, Michie, who's an anti-Brexit activist, and he called the EU referendum criminal. And those are the only ones I could find. It's actually extremely hard to find out who these kind of very mysterious SAGE members actually are. But I would just like to point out before I show the clip of Susan Michie, making that ridiculous demand that we include some restrictions in our lives forever. I would just like to point out that virtually every prediction SAGE has made recently has been wrong. All their predictions of apocalyptic doom when we started opening up, and they made several of them, saying that we shouldn't open up, have all been wrong. They've deaths have continued to go down. So lastly, I'll leave you with the clip of Susan.
Of social distancing, of when you're indoors, making sure there's good ventilation, or if there's not, wearing face masks, and hand and surface hygiene. We'll need to keep these going in the long term, and that will be good not only for COVID, but also to reduce other.
So when you say long term, sorry to interrupt, Professor Michie. When you say long term, what do you mean by that? How long? Very quickly.
I think forever, to some extent, because.
Why didn't you say that?